If you've followed me for long enough, you will know that I have a slight obsession with parasocial relationships, the relationships between fans and celebrities, audiences and content creators and performers, and how they interact online, and just how social media functions in general, and all of the rules that we've created outside of the rules put in place by the platforms themselves. I think I've always been fascinated and disturbed in equal measure, and the conversations surrounding it will never not draw me in. And the trolling that seems to happen to me happens cyclically, annually. For some reason, every January to March, there's a new wave of trolling that just happens within my little corner of the internet. I can't explain it. I don't know why. I don't know if there's some sort of universal retrograde that happens. I don't know if there's something funny in the water, if it's hormonal. I don't know. But the conversation has cropped up again within my own little world. And seeing as I'm so fascinated by it, and seeing as in 2022 I said that I wanted to embrace the old style of YouTube where you just talk about whatever you want to talk about and voice those thoughts and feelings and opinions, here I am. I have been on Tinterwebs now for long enough to call it Tinterwebs and be old enough for people to buy that is something I would genuinely call it. It's been about 13 years, which is a very long time, and I have had my fair share of amazing ups, where I've got to work with some incredible brands, interview some amazing people, and showcase my life behind the scenes of doing what I love day in and day out. However, there have also been some really low lows, most notably a very legitimate stalker who was imprisoned for his crimes against me and other performers. And one of the downs, and one of the things that has always kind of weighed me down, was the discovery and just the existence in general of gossip forums. However, I have a new perspective on gossip forums, and I feel like I'm about to say something really controversial, but I also feel like it's the best perspective to have in light of the fact that we are probably never going to get rid of things like gossip and hate forums. And that controversial thing is that I am quite glad that they exist. I think that if there are people out there who genuinely feel it is a good use of their time to hate watch people that they don't know and then turn to these gossip forums to chat with like-minded people and tear these individuals that they don't know apart, I personally don't understand it. But if they are using these contained forums as a way to release tension, anxiety, hatred, sadness, to vent their frustrations, whether that's legitimately created by the people that they're hate watching, or whether it's just a projection of something that's going on in their lives that they don't know how to deal with, I would much rather that all happened within a contained space than on the feeds of the individuals that they are talking about. If they are shouting into the abyss at each other, rather than trying to directly interfere with an individual's life, an individual who might not be mentally and emotionally capable of dealing with the level of hatred that what feels like a large group of people might be wanting to incite, that is the lesser of two evils. Ideally, none of it exists. Ideally, we just see something on the internet that we personally don't like and we learn how to scroll and move on. But I'm also realistic enough to know that that is just never going to happen. And another thing that I think crops up in this conversation a lot is what I just said about what we personally don't like. I feel like we have a really hard time these days distinguishing the difference between what we personally wouldn't do ourselves and what isn't really right for us and our lives versus what is legitimately wrong and bad and should be talked about within a public sphere. The first thing that comes to mind is Andrew Tate. Not someone I want to discuss for very long and give too much airtime to, but he is someone who specifically uses his platform to spread bile and controversy and hate. And unfortunately, in my opinion, he is someone who sometimes needs to be talked about within a public sphere for the safety of a younger generation and to teach them that this is not someone they should be watching and listening to and learning from. But like I said, it's very hard for a lot of people to distinguish the difference between someone who is inciting hate versus someone who's just doing something that they personally wouldn't do themselves. Like, for instance, I was trolled very heavily last year for marrying my husband, and I'm under no illusions that we got married quickly. I'm very aware within the grand scheme of things, lots of people thought that it was too fast and too soon, but unfortunately, too fast for them and too soon for them equated to wrong and bad and shouldn't be happening at all. But there were lots of people, I'm sure, who saw my too fast and too soon marriage to my husband and thought, well, I wouldn't marry someone that fast if it was me, but she seems happy, so... And then they just scrolled past and moved on. Because my actions weren't inherently wrong, they just weren't right for them. And that's okay. Now, don't get me wrong, I've done and said some really stupid shit in my lifetime. I've been a bellend on many an occasion, both purposefully and accidentally, and I will continue to be a bellend on occasion, both purposefully and accidentally, because I'm a human being, and I will make mistakes, and I will grow and learn from those mistakes, and then I'll make different mistakes, and I'll just try and grow and learn from them. That is just the nature of being a human. But as long as we are all striving to be good people, and we are learning and growing from the mistakes that we make, all is right with the world. But not only has social media given everyone a platform to voice their opinions, which can be positive and negative, it has also given us as individuals access to too many people's opinions. Even when you're just existing as a human and you're not really doing anything that could be agreed or disagreed with, when you're just existing as a human being, you are still bombarded. You open social media in the morning and before you've even blinked 10 times or gone for a wee or had some water, you've got people sharing their opinions on everything, but also on you, telling you you look great or you look tired or that you shouldn't really be eating that and you'd look better if you lost a bit of weight. Actually, you'd look better if you gained some weight just on your ass and nowhere else. And you're going to be a great mother, but only if you breastfeed. And did you know that if you keep your cat, he's going to sit on your baby's head and suffocate her, so you're going to have to get rid of it? By the way, I love your ginger hair, but you look better when you were blonde. Positive or negative, no one individual was ever meant to be subjected to this many opinions, but we've completely normalized it. We've totally normalized that that is just a part of social media, and we readily accept that that is just a part of life now. And it reminds me of that bit in Bruce Almighty where he suddenly hears the prayers of the entire world all at once, and it is so mind-numbingly overwhelming. But we've normalized that, and I just don't think that our brains and our mental and emotional capacity have adapted to capacitate all of that as quickly as we've normalised it. And I also don't think that we should adapt our brains to capacitate it, because I just don't think our brains are designed to be exposed to that many opinions all at once. It's like that saying, a camel is a horse designed by a committee. It makes me feel terrible for camels because I love camels and I think they're doing a stellar job. But it's this idea that too many conflicting opinions will never achieve the desired objective. And in that case, it was a horse, and you ended up with a camel. If you take too many people's wants and needs and preferences into account, you end up with something that's muddled and jumbled and a million miles away from what you wanted in the first place. And if what you wanted in the first place was just to be a functioning human existing on the internet, and you're listening to what everyone else wants you to do and say and be and think, it's never going to align with what you wanted in the first place, and that is what should matter most. Opinions, in my opinion, should come from those that you trust. Your inner circle of friends and family have proved to you time and time again that their opinions can be counted on, even when they're hard to hear. You want people that champion you to the nth degree, but also aren't afraid to pull you to one side and be like, babe, no, you're being a dick. That is what we need. We need people who know us as well-rounded people in order to give us well-rounded opinions. A stranger on the internet, or even 1,000 strangers on the internet, are never going to be able to give us that, because they just don't know us enough. They don't have enough of the full picture. They know who you are in the percentage of you that is captured online. They know the tip of the iceberg and not what's under the water. But your friends and family know all of you. They know you intimately as a person. They know who you are behind closed doors. They know who you are when the camera goes off. They know who you are when you put your phone down. And they are the people you should be turning to for opinions and advice. I go through phases on social media of feeling like the most hated woman on the planet, and like I deserve it, and that I have done truly horrible things, and that, you know, marrying my husband was an awful thing, and starting this musical theatre workshop company was a horrendous thing to do, and that I shouldn't be allowed to exist in a public space. And then I step back and realise that that voice saying that in my head doesn't actually belong to me. It belongs to 13 years worth of trolls that have smushed and amalgamated into this sort of Megatron monster in my head. And I find myself having conversations with it, and it's exhausting. It's so tiring. And I am so lucky that I have incredible people around me, like my husband, my friends, my parents, my family, my therapist. But I often can't stop myself from thinking, what if I didn't have that support network? And what if I wasn't in a position where I could afford the past and present therapy that I have been through and am going through, that has given me the tools, the mental tools and capacity to try and deal with this kind of stuff? What happens to these people who aren't in a position to get themselves through it? And how, as a society and a community, have we just become okay with subjecting people to that and using this age-old phrase of, well, if they didn't want to be subjected to hatred, then they shouldn't be online? At what point do we all take responsibility for this online world that we've all had a hand in creating? And as much as I'm, you know, okay with the fact that I have come to the conclusion that as long as their opinions are staying their business and not my business, they can crack on with it, but that still doesn't make it okay. And will we ever get to a point where we all collectively decide that it's so not okay that something should be done about it? I don't think we will, not in my lifetime, but just something I've been thinking about a lot recently. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you very soon.